People of Reddit who have lived in a haunted house, what are your most unexplainable paranormal experiences?
Closest I've got to a haunted house is a haunted room. I used to sleep on the second floor, the bottom one being the first, and my sister slept in the attic. She used to have sleep paralysis often. Then she moved out, and now I have her old room. She no longer experiences sleep paralysis, but I do.
Similar experience. When I sleep in my old room, I have sleep paralysis about 3 times a week, with 3 levels of dreams, like some Inception thing. After I got married and moved out, it never happened again. Our old neighbor once told me that before my parents bought the house, a bedridden family member of the previous owner passed away right where my old room is.
My uncle's house, located in a very eastern part of New York, was said to be haunted. Back in the 1800s, the family who owned it decided not to give the property to their stableman and sold it instead. He and the maid were said to have haunted the place ever since. We always used to joke about hearing people or things moving at night, but since the house was so old, we just laughed it off. One night, my uncle's friend and her sister stayed over. The friend woke up and noticed a maid carrying towels down the stairs. Later, she saw the same maid again, this time carrying what looked like a percolator. She was impressed, thinking my uncle had hired staff. He's a neurologist in NYC and has a tendency to spend a little extra. She went back to bed, then woke up later and went downstairs, where my uncle and his friend were chatting. She asked where the maid was, assuming she was in the kitchen making breakfast. My uncle had no idea what she was talking about and asked her to describe the maid. When she did, he laughed, led her to the living room, and pointed to an old picture. She said, "That's her." My uncle replied, "Yeah, she's been dead for about 100 years.
My grandparents have a helpful ghost, too. Their house was built in the 1860s, and they've lived there since the late 1960s. Over the years, various family members have heard the vacuum cleaner turn on by itself, and clothes or towels that were dropped on the floor before bed have been found neatly folded and placed at the foot of the bed by morning. One day, in an intense burst of procrastination, I looked up every mention of their address in the town's online newspaper archives. I discovered that the family who built the house had a daughter who grew up there, never married, and cared for her widowed father until she passed away of old age. So I figure the helpful ghost is just that daughter, still taking care of people, just like she did her whole life.
I lived in a house for about 5 years that was haunted, but not in a malicious way. More like having a really annoying roommate. I'd come home to find the windows on the second floor open while it was raining, or food containers in the fridge opened even though I hadn't touched them yet. The worst part was that the ghost absolutely hated clocks. I mean, hated them. I had antique cuckoo clocks that had worked perfectly for 50 years suddenly stop. Brand new wall clocks would drain their batteries like candy. One morning, I woke up to find my watch on the floor with the crystals shattered, even though I'd gone to sleep wearing it. The one that made me the most upset was a brand new Kit Kat clock I'd gotten for Christmas. I was cooking when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the cat fly across the kitchen. I turned around and saw it lying broken on the other side of the room. It was brand new. Man, she was something else.
I once watched one of our cats get pulled backward about 5 feet by her tail. She was walking through the dining area when all of a sudden she started sliding backward, as if someone was actually tugging on her tail, but there was no one there. She freaked out and tried to run, but couldn't right away, as something seemed to hold on for just a brief moment before letting her go. I like to think that was the work of a little ghost girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, who hangs around the house and just wanted to play with the kitty.
When I was around 9 or 10 years old, I remember waking up one night to see a large shadow standing at the foot of my bed. At the time, I was living with my dad in his very large 5-story terrace house that was built in the 1800s. Every so often, strange things would happen there, like hearing footsteps when no one was around, or voices with no clear source. That particular night, it was just my dad and me in the house. My sister was staying with my mom. I woke up and noticed that the door to my room was wide open, even though I always slept with it closed. Then I became aware of a tall, shadow-like figure, about 7 feet tall, watching me from the end of my bed. When the figure realized I could see it, it seemed to melt into the floor, and the door to my room slammed shut. Understandably, I was pretty shaken by the whole thing. The next day, I asked my dad if he had been in my room, but he said he had no idea what I was talking about, and he's definitely not the type to play pranks.
I used to live in an old, big 5-bedroom house with 6 other people. My partner and I shared one of the rooms. When I was in my 20s, I saw a stranger in our room. It wasn't exactly visible, but I could feel that someone was standing in the corner. My partner was asleep next to me, and while I had my eyes open, I could sense it was there. I closed my eyes and tried to wish it away. When I opened them again, it was standing right next to the bed, looking at me. I shut my eyes once more and suddenly I felt a wave of relief. When I looked again, it was gone. I saw it one more time on the stairs, just for a brief moment, and then it disappeared.
I had fallen asleep one night with my fan running and woke up freezing, so I turned it off. Not long after, I woke up feeling hot and turned it back on. This happened several times throughout the night. The last time I woke up feeling hot again, I opened my eyes, and right at that moment, I heard the pull chain of my fan move. I looked up and watched it slowly start speeding up on its own. I just said, "Thank you," and went back to sleep.
I live in a house that was built in the 1800s. It survived both world wars, so I can only imagine the things it's seen. One of the previous owners had 2 sons, both of whom tragically took their own lives. A lot of strange things happen here. The animals, our dog and parrots, will suddenly wake up from their naps and start following something with their heads, just like they do when I walk around. Before I switched rooms, my brother used to have one that he refused to sleep in because he'd hear voices at night. He was a kid back then and slept with my parents until he took my old room, and since then, he's had no problems. There's also an entire floor we don't use. I sleep in the attic, and to get there, I have to pass through that unused floor. There's a motion-activated light on that level that turns on when I walk up the stairs, but sometimes it switches on in the middle of the night, even when no one's there. And then there are the cold spots. Random patches of air that feel icy for no reason at all.
In 2012, my stepfather passed away unexpectedly in the hallway of his condo apartment. My mom had to move out shortly after, since they were already behind on mortgage payments. A few months later, my lease ended, and I was barely making ends meet. I couldn't find a new roommate, so my mom offered me the key to the condo so I could stay there for a while until I saved enough to get my own place. I accepted and moved in. After about a month, I was asleep in the living room and had a dream of him standing in the hallway, facing me. He was smiling, laughing, even made one of his usual dumb jokes. It wasn't scary at all, just bittersweet. Then I suddenly woke up when I felt something gently touching my head and back. There was nothing there, and it honestly freaked me out. As someone who's skeptical and doesn't believe in the paranormal, I figure it must have been some kind of sensory hallucination. Still, it was nice to see him in my dream again. Made me tear up just typing this. Rest in peace, Darren. Mildly interesting fact. He passed away on July 13th, 2012, a Friday the 13th.
We moved from the US to the UK, and my parents bought an old, beat-up house. It still had lead pipes for the water. A nightmare all on its own. While we were living there, the renovation work began, and that's when strange things started happening. We began seeing bright lights in the corners of rooms at night and hearing footsteps on the floorboards, even though the whole house was carpeted. I was about 6 years old at the time and started waking up in the middle of the night to see a little girl dancing on top of my chest of drawers. I was absolutely terrified. My mom brushed it off, saying it was probably just a dream. The workers who were fixing the house also complained about odd things. Tools being moved, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. After about a year of this, one of my older sister's friends stayed the night. She woke the entire house up screaming, saying that a little girl had been in her room and had actually pulled her from the bed. She left the house that night and refused to ever come back. That's when my mom decided to seek advice. Someone suggested that we treat whatever presence was there as part of the family. So when we came home, we'd call out, "Hi, we're home. Did you have a good day?" Over time, the house seemed to settle, and the strange activity stopped. Later, we learned that a little girl had once passed away in the house from an asthma attack. My parents still live there today, and it's now a warm, welcoming